you've heard the old saying that fishing is an ideal pastime for all kids, from 8 to 80. Well, it's as true today as ever it was, even if you're only trying to catch tiddlers. The modern housewife takes a different view, for she finds that catching fish is no pastime, but a very, very serious business. Of course, the experts are always ready to advise her on the most succulent kind, though they often forget to see that they're put on the fishmonger's slab. So Mrs. Housewife has to take what she can get. And even the humble herring, with its vitamins A and D, and a few bones thrown in for make weight, proves a tasty dish, thanks to her culinary skill. But joking apart, those who earn their livelihood by fishing face many dangers, for the sea isn't always gentle, and the fish don't always run. In the numerous little fishing villages dotted along our rugged coastline, they'll tell you stories of the perils they encounter, yet none of them would forsake the sea, and fishing is the oldest calling of mankind. Nowadays, fishing has become a large industry, and besides the little ports, there are the big centres such as Yarmouth, where fish is brought in to be sent out again to the big cities, although there's always some left over for the seagulls. Nets and supplies are taken aboard, and the little craft leave on the tide to search the ocean for the silver harvest. What they'll bring back they can't tell, for although fishing calls for skill and experience, it remains a chancy business where good luck links with good judgment. Perhaps that's what gives the job a fascination above all others. You can't very well talk about fishing without mentioning Grimsby, and for that matter, Fleetwood, Fraserburgh and Aberdeen as well. In such towns, fishing is the main industry, and with the increasing demand for food, more men are needed to take the boats to sea. Perhaps you've always imagined that fishermen are born and not made, but nothing could be further from the truth. The business of fishing can be taught, just like any other job. All the same, you might be excused for thinking that a school for fishermen is a little out of the ordinary. Well, here is the school, where youngsters are taught the job of fishing, though many of the pupils today are older fellows in search of a new career. They have to learn how to mend nets and splice ropes. Even in our scouting days, we were told that there's a knack in making knots, but these coarse and heavy ropes are hard on the hands, and it isn't easy to tie the knots correctly. The instructor stands by to give advice and help unravel the knots that may go wrong. In these days, wire ropes are used in place of the coir variety for many jobs, and this calls for special splicing tools. It isn't long before the students are given an opportunity of finding out what life aboard ship is really like. The smell of tar and salt impregnated in the decks greets their nostrils, a foretaste of things to come. But early lessons are given when the boat is in dock. They get a chance to find their sea legs later. Trawler owners lend their vessels willingly, for they know that these youngsters can't learn the job without practical instruction, and the blackboard has its limitations. They all take a keen interest in the work, and the instructors are men who've spent a lifetime on the seas. From their store of knowledge, they can pass on many useful tips which they had to learn the hard way. Casting the drifter nets may look like child's play when the boat is in dock, but when the job has to be done on a heavy sea against a biting wind, it's a very different story. The lowering must be done evenly to prevent the nets getting tangled up. Then the floats have to be fixed on, but that comes in a later lesson. The students soon learn that much of the fisherman's fortune is tied up in his nets, and during storms, these often get badly damaged and sometimes lost. The success of the catch depends upon their good condition and reliability, and instruction on their handling and maintenance is an important part of the school's curriculum. While drift fishing can only be carried out during certain seasons, trawling is done throughout the year. This calls for a different technique in which a conical-shaped net is prepared to sweep the ocean bed. In this case, the handling of the nets is a much heavier job, and there's more to it than that. Currents and tides must be taken into consideration, otherwise the nets will get carried away or damaged. Having caught the fish, it's just as well to know what to do with it, and the school runs special cookery classes where the lads are instructed in culinary arts, a useful accomplishment for any man. Not only is there a right way of catching fish, but also a right way of cooking them too, and here the chef lets the class into a few of his professional secrets. The kitchen is fitted with the same equipment and utensils as are used in the galleys of the fishing vessels. All that is lacking is the smell and the tossing of the ship. But they soon find out how to deal with such inconveniences and, under expert guidance, fry a place until it's crisp and brown, just like mother's. Well, almost anyway. When the fishing fleet is at sea for several days, the cook often has to bake bread for the crew, a task which many housewives would be unable to tackle. But it's wonderful what a bit of training will do for a man. Yes, it's done to a cinder. After the lads have spent 4 years at sea, they can return to the school for instruction in the more advanced subjects, which will help them in their examinations to become first mates. This class, for instance, is being shown how to set and read the log line. Fishermen must know exactly how far they have to steam to reach the fishing grounds. Hence, the log line is an important part of their equipment. The modern fisherman must know a bit of everything. Nowadays, their vessels are usually fitted with petrol or diesel engines, and the crew must be able to deal with breakdowns in cases of emergency. Each boat has its own engineer, so there's a need for lads who are mechanically minded, and the school provides them with expert tuition. Just in case you didn't know, there's a rule of the road at sea similar to the highway code on land. Here the fellows are taught the right way to overtake other vessels. These rules have been drawn up by an international committee of mariners for the sake of all types of ships at sea. Sailors must know and obey these rules, no matter whether they voyage on a fishing smack or transatlantic liner. Smaller ships must give way to the larger ones, and they must never cross each other's path. Many of the older fellows attend the navigation class, where they learn something about compass reading and the equipment in the wheelhouse of fishing boats. There are all sorts of devices to assist the seamen, such as sounding apparatus and radar. Their correct use calls for extra knowledge on the part of the navigator, whose job is rapidly becoming more scientific than of old. Perhaps by this time you're finding out that there's more to this fishing business than just catching fish. In this classroom, the instructor is delving into the mysteries of nautical astronomy. The charts on the blackboard look like a fortune teller's showcase. At the end of the course, the lads are anxious to put their newfound knowledge to the test and join their elder brothers in the fishing fleet. Each morning the boats put to sea, for no matter if the weather is fine or foul, the fishing must go on. Today, there will be many new faces among the crew. Naturally, the old uns regard the newcomers skeptically. They don't believe in this newfangled training. But boys like young Ted here have a determination to make good. Britain's fishing fleet mainly consists of drifters and trawlers, which bring to our shores nearly 1 million tons of fish every year. Yet in spite of the unceasing efforts of the fishermen, another 200,000 tons have to be imported to meet our needs. The help of Ted and his companions can play an important part in increasing the silver harvest of the only food which is abundant round our island. To Ted, this first trip is something of an adventure, and as his boat nears the harbour mouth, he begins to wonder how his stomach will react to the growing swell. The more experienced fishermen aren't worried by such trifles. They've learned to take things as they find them. But when you've spent a lifetime on the sea, you grow accustomed to its many moods and have faith in the little craft and their safe return to port. Yes, even the trusty little sailing boats never fail their crews. Ted takes his first dose of rough weather like a man. A few more trips and he'll find his sea legs and ignore a bit of swell. But for the present, he's wondering what acrobatic feats the boat will perform next. During the bleak autumn months, drifters are engaged on herring fishing in the North Sea. At this time of year, the fish are in their prime and come together in great shoals, often 8 miles long. More than 80 nets are put over the side to form a wall of mesh 2 miles long and 30 feet deep. These are kept afloat with canvas pallets as the drifter steams along. Meanwhile, Ted has found a job which keeps his mind off the heavy sea. He gets little consolation from the fact that this is considered good fishing weather by the other members of the crew. The last float is fixed, and for the next few hours the nets will drift astern. On another vessel, the first catch has already come aboard and is being boxed. Yes, not too bad for a first haul. Perhaps the next will be even better. Anyway, the gulls are good herring spotters. Bringing in the sodden nets often takes 3 hours of back-aching work, but the welcome sight of gleaming fish puts new vigor into the tired fishermen. A little further out, a fleet of trawlers is at work. Unlike the drifters, these deep-sea boats fish all the year round and stay at sea for longer periods, often voyaging as far afield as Iceland in search of good fishing grounds. The nets are hauled every 4 or 5 hours throughout the day and night, and when the catch is good, the fishermen work on until the holes are filled. A well-filled trawl net weighs several tons. The slippery fish make it hard to keep a foothold on the deck. But fishermen are used to such conditions and work with speed and efficiency. As soon as the net is emptied, it's retied and thrown back into the sea again. At last, the holes are filled and the boats can return to port. Ted has done his first trip and has earned membership to the Brotherhood of Fishermen. To him and all his shipmates, we wish good hardest and safe return.